Hey guys, it's me Pinky. All the time, basically, people discuss about bows. One part of the player thinks they are very bad, another part of the player thinks they still have a niche for them and still have an awesome point. Truth is, in my mind at least, both are kind of outdated. They honestly, in my mind, always were. Even at the times when all the ways were going bows for the first Glory Battle, for example, or for I think 2 UC seasons, everyone played both, and even then I think they were kind of not the best pick. The only upside they had back then was they were not able to get countered, which made them a good pick for Glory Battle, just so if you're stronger than the others and no one can counter you, then you will win. But even then, for example, Imperial Rock was running spears and was beating them all. Still, what I want to talk about today is why, in my mind, both got worse and worse since then, and are today kind of outgunned against other troop types. I did try this myself a few weeks back when we were rallying the Ali boss, and I was feeling like I want to know if I could beat the Ali boss without my synergy, without my base stats, and of course I can't reduce all my base stats because some, like from green sides and stuff, are permanent, but as you can see I had no red main hands and stuff. I had a tiny bit smaller army size, he had 6 million T5s, I had mostly T4s, and there's still one, and I want to kind of try to explain why. Of course, keep in mind please, this report is far from perfect because he has no awakened commanders, and awakened commanders make a lot of damage between 0 stars and 4 stars. The difference is very huge, but then also I have Sinara and my commanders made 0 damage at all. And basically what I want to try today is to explain you why I think they are weaker than the other troop types. I think this has mainly 2 reasons. And the first, I think, is the fawning off from bowmen base stats, T4s compared to T5s. I will go into that. And the other thing is synergy, main hands, etc., base stats overall. And we will go into that as like a second part. So at first, if you look at T5 bowmen, their attack looks pretty awesome with 150. And their defense stats are a bit worse than from normal troops, and we will just compare this to T5 calves, which have a bit less attack, 9% to be precise, and have better defensive stats. And here's the first thing that you need to keep in mind to understand why both may have a problem these days. The thing is, if you compare troops with each other, of course you need to look at the stats here in the barracks, but there's also another thing that different troop types attack with different attack speed. So the fastest attackers are cavalries. If you fight open field, cavalry with something else, they will attack around 33 times in the 40-second fight. Then you have Inf with 28, you have Spears with 25, and you have both with around 20 attacks, which means both only have like 62.5% the attack speed of the fastest troop type, calves. And if you then compare that, calves only have 9% less attack, but almost attack twice as often, you get an idea that the damage output from calves in reality is a lot higher than for bows, what would be considered just from the barracks here. Then there's also a thing, if you add up all the stats from the T5 bows, they have base stats worth of 300 points, a calf have base stats worth of 312 points, T5 was T5. If you now go back to when everyone was playing both and most of the people had T4 only, or I think back then there were only T4s, if you would compare T4 bows to T4 calves, T4 bows had 251 stats and calves had 249, so both had a tiny bit more stats as T4s, calves, which were the weakest T4s in the mind of a lot of people. And now calves have a tiny bit more stats than both have. This alone is like a very big difference because you lost your stat bonus on other troop types. You are still attacking slower than them. You have the problem that the higher your attack is, the less useful is one base attack. So for T4s with like 100 attack, more or less, 10 base attack would be 10 10% more damage. For a bowman with 150, 10 more base wouldn't be an increase of 10% anymore. So if you put 40 base onto a T5 cav, it's increased by 29.2%. If you put 40 base on a T5 bowman, it's an increase of 26.6%. I know that might sound slim, but if you then keep in mind that all the other troop types have a better and easier access to base attacks, it's way more likely to get 40 base, which are more effective, onto a melee troop type than onto bows, which gain less from the base attack and also have a harder way to get it. This has a very simple reason. Both don't really have their own synergy. Infantries have bleed, spearmen have weakness, and cavalries have female, and you can combine these. Like you can run hybrid in for hybrid cast, are very popular, and the more you go into a premium segment of the game, the stronger your commanders will get. And then there are commanders like, let's say, Senau, that give you only cast stats and only things that support your calves and the female playstyle. So if you want to use female bows, which are the most popular bowman playstyle, and you use Senau, then you basically use a commander that gives you nothing but the synergy. Or you don't use the commander, but then you miss out on the synergy. This is another big problem for the bows, that basically once you leave the, let's say, basic commanders, you will lose out on the synergy effects. But even then, for most people, let's say we are a non-premium account, we just have the basic commanders and basic main hands. Even then, there will be a problem sooner or later, because most bows will play females or females plus Kavras, because Kavras is very powerful and I would totally use him unless I have 5 expensive commanders. But if not, Kavras is for sure one of the best commanders in the tier with Arya. So if you play bows, you should use Kavras, but then Kavras is a male, so it doesn't work with females. I know we come a bit to the problem with bows, because let's say you want to play female bows, then you might want to have Salma's main hand, because you want to use Salma, so you attack in the first second, and with Salma's main hand you will guarantee to attack in the first second, and if you wipe the enemy out, you attack again if you 4-star it, and your first second attack can be stronger and whatnot. But then if you look onto the main hand, it A, only gives you cavalry attack and only gives you a few total stats, and B, if you want to roll in random attributes, they're also not useful for bows. So you can get 11 cav base attack, but no bow base. And the same goes with reducing spearman attack. Reducing the bowman attack is only versus cavalry, so it's not bow versus bow. So even there, so let's say you want to have the synergy effect of Salma's main hand, then you already have Salma as a commander, not giving you anything for bows, only her synergy effect. Then you get her main hand, and then you can get a few total stats that are very low. You can get a few reductions, and the rest is not really worth it. Or you use Salma and put a total or bowman hand on it, but then you get the stats which get converted worse than on other troop types, because of the attack speed and the base stats. You will again miss out on the synergy, and that does not only count for Salma, that also goes for Layla. And if you go into the premium commanders, there are Senel bowmans, for example, they have the same problem. This then leads to the next big thing happening in I don't know, the last year or something, or even longer, that the big upside of both was to not get counted. But now you have commanders like Darren that will give you an infantry anti-counter, so Darren will protect you from being fully overrun by calves, because still the enemy synergy will still overrun you. So if you're using Darren, you will most likely bleed, and if your enemy females have a bit of disarm, you are still in trouble. But the newer commanders even take disadvantage of being uncountable kind of away from the bows, because they also help infantry to not get fully overrun by calves. And then you not only have Darren, you also have Valerian, which will increase the damage your infantry does against calves. Also here, the big advantage why everyone was turning to bows for a while was the counter save. Here, honestly, your tube type can be kind of counter immune these days. Not fully, but you can min-max this very far. And then it's just synergy with a synergy again. And this is, by the way, also why spears work so good against bows, because a lot of bows use females and females get countered by the spears. But if you think back to my report, even calves without a synergy beat bows without a synergy. In the end, if you ask me, for free to plays, if you want to have a lot of troops and kind of try to trap people or tank rallies, or if you're a small spender and want to tank rallies, then I think bows are still an okay pick. You still have to kind of accept that whenever you play against someone in your power bracket, and you fight against them on even synergy and troop numbers, then you will most likely lose, just because both are worth on that. But you can still be a fine tank. Unless you fight someone that is really, really maxed, then you shouldn't try the bows at all. But the whole thing with base attack conversion, worth attack speed, I think is a very, very big factor, and the worth base stats make you understand why the bows are like kind of getting worse and worse from month to month. There is hope for players that want to play events, because at least for AC, you can research bowmen base defensive stats, which will have a kind of big impact, I believe, because since the other troops have more defensive base stats, the effect of one more defensive base, like base defense or base health, is not as big as on the bows. And like this, I think bows could become a little bit better in like AC again. And if you are in a like bow heavy alliance, you have an easier reinforcement and stuff like this. So I could see both having kind of a comeback there, but in the end, I still believe that the like downsides with synergies and main hands are still too big to let bows return like they were somewhat in the past. And if you ask me, I think it's a good thing, because I found bow only pretty boring, and I'm happy it's over. But since people always talk about why bows are so bad, and I tested it a bit back, I guess why not talk about it.